Hello, you're tuning in to AWANI Review with me, Cynthia Earn. Fortnite, a multi-platform video game developed by Epic Games, has more than 350 million users globally, and one of the reasons underpinning Fortnite's massive success is the software it uses called Unreal Engine. Now, joining me on the show today is Quentin Staes-Polet, who is the India and Southeast Asia General Manager at Epic Games, to talk about why Unreal Engine is changing the way we experience content in the future and how the gaming industry could pioneer a shift in other sectors. Thank you so much, Quentin, for joining me on Awani Review.
Thank you for having me, Cynthia. It's a pleasure.
Quentin, I want to start with understanding Unreal Engine. Talk to us about the company, the
Okay.
software, and why has it been such a huge success for Epic Games?
Right. So, Epic Games was founded about 29 years ago in Maryland, and we now headquartered in Cary. Basically, the company started as it started as a video game distributor and publisher and developer. So we developed a lot of very popular games like Gears of Wars, etc. And more recently, Fortnite, which has been a very big success globally. Um, just imagine Fortnite, you're talking about, tens of millions of people connecting simultaneously online at the same time and sharing an experience. And not an experience like going on a website and downloading web page. It's an experience that's like sensitive to, milliseconds. People are running after each other, building things, shooting at each other. And the interaction between those people needs to be very rich, very immersive in 3D, and to be instant. And gamers have a very low tolerance for failing platform, etc. And so, as the game technology evolved, tools were developed over the years to build those games. Think about editorial tools like, if you want to write a document, you'll use a word processing document. If you want to, so same thing. We basically over years build a software platform that allow you to develop those very, very rich online experiences, right? In 3D with sounds, very reactive to the player. And more, what we've been focusing on is also photorealism, right? Initially games were just pixels, and then they moved into cartoonish type of things, and slowly they have evolved. And now what everybody is chasing is fundamentally photorealism. That means when you get inside the game, it looks like reality, right? And over the years, both the technology to play your consoles and your phone, as well, have evolved and becoming more and more able to really give you those photorealistic and immersive experience. And then the technology to develop the game has followed with that. And so those two things, the development of faster and faster graphic processing unit, the actual processors in the phone and in the console that are creating those 3D images on the fly that the players are saying, as well as the capability of the game engine, which is that technology that allow us to create games, have grown in parallel, and to make more and more convincingly immersive and photorealistic experiences, right? And so that's really the evolution of game engines, and what has allowed creators to create things as rich and as complex as Fortnite right now.
Now, I understand Unreal Engine is immensely popular, not just among large studios, but also independent game developers. Just want to understand about the construct of Unreal Engine and what makes it so attractive to developers across the board.
Well, as I said, it's a out of the box set of tools to create that game. So it has functions like, how do I create these images? How do I deal with lighting? How do I deal with the physics of the character and the objects inside the game? How do I deal with interaction between two players, or interaction between the players and the environment, right? If you had to code all this from scratch, it would be very, very complicated to build games. And so Unreal Engine is basically some preset tools with all those features that allows for people to very quickly, small and large team, to learn the tools and then to start creating their games, right? And we've also looked at beyond the engine. We're really trying to create an ecosystem of things. So last year we acquired, for instance, a company called Quixel, and the mission of Quixel is to scan the world and scan reality. So they've got some really, really sophisticated scanner, and they use technology that's called photogrammetry, which basically allows them to take pictures of things and get all the 3D measurement associated with those pictures and all the information associated with those pictures. And they package this, make it in some downloadable packages, put them online, and then from Unreal you can download those packages and very quickly take the existing reality that has been taken in, that has been scanned, and put that into your game, right? Like literally 5 years ago, that wasn't possible. 5 years ago, you needed artists to look at picture and actually recreate the digital version of this, and it would take hundreds of artists much longer. And now it's becoming instant. So as those tools are evolving very fast, it's becoming easier and easier to create more and more convincing, more and more immersive, more and more realistic environment, right? And it's a race. It's growing exponentially in terms of what we're able to do.
Now, what's really exciting, I thought, about Unreal Engine is its capabilities outside of gaming. So I know that it's now being used in film, TV production, the automotive industry, architecture, healthcare. So where is the brand focused on in terms of content? How do you see this software propelling the growth in other sectors outside of gaming?
You know, what's really interesting is that we were not looking at this. We're a very gaming-oriented company originally, and we were very focused on developing those tools to make a really exciting game and really, really photorealistic and really immersive games. Now, you'll remember maybe 4 or 5 years ago, VR headsets started emerging, and AR, augmented reality, started emerging. Again, underlined by those progress on the graphic processing unit that were suddenly allowing people to put in a face held in a head device, those image very fast, processor that process those images very, very fast. So with the emergence of that, suddenly visualization and the tool that allow to do those real time, meaning created right now instantly, for the purpose of the usage, right now, put together, I started giving a lot of ideas to other people in other industry. And let's take the example of movie making, right? Movie making at the moment is, until recently, is a very linear process where, people will scout, they will, try to describe the scene through a storyboard, and then go on set and test things. And when it's tested, they will apply visual effect into it and then bake it. And then finally, you've got the movie. And it's very linear. And if you make a mistake, you need to go back and redo the whole thing and recreate. So it's quite cumbersome process. Now, if you imagine that your movie set and your movie story is happening inside a game, well, you can control the game at any point and change things at any moment. And so once the game engine allows you to do something that's photorealistic, it's very much possible to pre-visualize your movie inside the game engine, right? And so directors, etc., have been able to build sets, using things like Quixel virtually. So instead of going on location and putting all your actors and waiting for the right light, etc., you're able now to get all the photo from the location, bring the actor in a studio with LED panel where you can reproject those environment, and you're not subject to the weather. You don't have to move the entire crew in one place, etc. So, just for instance, for movie making, it's created a lot of opportunity to be much more collaborative in creating, because you don't have so much external constraint. You can put your light artists, you can put your actors, your directors inside the studio where you control the environment, and you can actually create the same images that what you were creating in the past by going on set unprepared and having to rejig everything at the last moment. So That's true for movie, but it started to be true for many, many other industry, right? Taking a very simple other example, car designing, right? In the past, car designing were done, or still done in a lot of time, by creating clay models. So like reproduction of the geometry of the car in clay. And, they'll keep adjusting it and then testing it into the wind tunnel and, moving it again. And sometimes to create a new car, it would take, half a dozen of those clay models. Those clay models would take a lot of time, require a lot of artists to do them. And they would be very expensive, literally, hundreds of thousands of dollars for each clay model. So very high cost, not a lot of flexibility to go back and forth. Now, you can take, computer-assisted design of cars right now, and you can import them into the game engine and suddenly visualize your car in 3D, right? So you can see your car, and that's not very new. Some computer-assisted design tool were doing that before. What is new is that you can actually, through VR, go next to the car with your colleague that may be sitting in another country, and you guys can go together and sit around the car and adjust it live and really interact and look around with it. You can go potentially inside the car from a VR perspective. So you've got a much more realistic view of what the car will actually look like, how it will feel like, compared to your clay model that you had before. So again, the opportunities for the creators in many industries to collaborate, to modify, to do a lot more things digitally than they were able to do in the past. And the list of industries that are touched by that is endless. And, we don't know all of them. It's really creative people who are regarding, oh, if I could do this way, it'd be much easier. It's an easier way to collaborate. It's an easy way to create. It reduces the number of mistakes we have, or it allows them to correct them in an easier manner. So yeah, it's super exciting to be in this segment because we're discovering new application and new return on investment of applying this technology to creative process across industries.
Game developers like yourself are always pushing the bounds of creativity. You mentioned creativity earlier. Right. What kind of lessons can non-game sectors learn from your industry?
Well, I think what's been really super interesting and what's attracted me to this industry, I'm not a very hardcore gamer. I don't spend a lot of hours inside games, but what's been always fascinating to me is how the game industry first brings the most advanced technologies and innovation and mix that with art, mix that with storytelling, and mix this now, with mass multiplayer online game, which actually started mostly in Asia, a social aspect. So the games have become a social platform. They've become a place of innovation and creation. And that's really what's been very exciting to me. And then what's even more interesting is a lot of innovation in technology actually stays in lab, right? And the game industry, because of the number of young, dynamic, excited, people participating in the game industry, has been a place where technological, innovation have gone mass market, right? So think about what you and I are doing now, video conferencing, right? This really started in gamers. Gamers wanted to talk together, and they started leveraging those platforms that existed, but were reserved to very limited number of professionals, and they've started even with it. So chat, before social network, gamers had social network and underlying games. So all of those technology and innovation, turn into mass market. If you think about VR today, it's very much reserved to very industry. It's still pricing. The only place where it's really taken off on a more mass consumer market is been through the PSVR in gaming. So again, that place where innovation. So I think more and more innovators in industry and different sector are looking at gaming and how the technology is evolving and saying, how can we leverage this so we can collaborate better, so we can push the technology envelope in our segment. Another example you mentioned, I think actually healthcare earlier, right? One of the things that we've seen be super efficient and saving life literally is surgery training, right? When you do surgeries, I mean, you can train on dummies and all of those things, but you can't train 100 times. It's complicated. It takes a lot of time. Well, you can simulate in 3D operation, a surgery, and use tools that are very similar to or exactly like what the surgeon would use, connect them into the game engine to simulate, and basically get the surgeon to do 100 times the surgery before he does it for real the first time. So you can imagine the impact in lowering the amount of mistakes, and saving people's life literally. So it has just endless application in training and safety and all of those things.
Now let's talk about what's keeping you excited as a game developer yourself. How do you see new iterations of Unreal Engine in terms of changing what we have right now, going beyond gaming, going beyond a digital world to forge perhaps a closer human connection?
Well, a lot to do, obviously, we've all experienced in the last 1 year what it is like to live online, right? And we've had much less opportunities to get together, and it's been a shock for most industries. In gaming, because we work digitally a lot, it's been maybe a little bit less of a shock, but it's come very apparent to everybody that it's never going to replace the social proximity of hanging out together, etc. Right? But what's also come very clear is that we still have a long way to learn in terms of establishing presence in online, right? I mean, obviously you and I on video, that brings some presence, etc. But if you think about avatars and AI-driven characters, etc., or the use of game technology to create humans that are almost as similar as real humans. There's a lot of things that need to be done, right? And we've released recently a new technology called MetaHuman that's one attempt to go closer to that. And if you think about it, it's easy to make people a cartoon smile or cry or close his eyes, etc. What's much more difficult is what we do as human beings is micro emotion that show by barely noticeable things that show on your face when you show surprise or anger or happiness. All those micro emotions, it's literally thousands of small muscles just barely moving. But as human beings, this is what makes our presence, right? Behind all, we have our senses are so tuned that there's a lot of processing that's happening that we don't realize, right? And so for us, as a game company and as chasing, photorealism and that presence, that real feel of presence, bringing those tools so we can capture all those very, very fine a cue that as human we capturing when we having human interaction, right? So MetaHuman is an example of that. We literally put scanners that are taking thousands of images of a second to capture very slight variation of how our face changes through the emotions we have, and then allow virtual synthetic character to do the same things, right? So you can imagine the next level is you and I will have avatars online. They don't need to look like us, but we want those avatars to be as fine and sophisticated as we can be as human beings. So those avatars that are online that represent us are as refined as we are in our communication. So that's one way to push the overall envelope on how the technology brings you presence, right? Actually, and make the digital world much closer to the virtual world. So
And
there's
I think
many.
that lies the
Right.
game changer. The gap
That's right.
between the real and
That's right.
virtual world is really
That's right.
getting so much closer.
That's
And
right.
you have the technology to really merge it together. So how far away
That's
do you think, this micro expressions that you're talking about,
Well,
how far away?
I think the pandemic has allowed us to go leaps and bounds, and because just was just so much more focus on this and lots more thinking, and the fact that we spend so much time online has really propelled the entire humanity into seeking more uh, aggressively that presence, and to try to connect through this. We've super privileged, obviously, like the whole game industry, and especially the the social gaming, the MMO, mass multiplayer gaming, how it's allowed a lot of kids that were not able to go to school and were not able to socialize as they were before, to be connected. So I think the awareness throughout humanity of how games and digital life is now here to stay and be more important has really put a momentum into that. There's lots of new innovation, and we've been trying to push the envelope. We've been growing very fast. We've been acquiring new technology. I mentioned Quixel. We've recently acquired Capture Reality also, which is that photogrammetry software that allowed to take more and more sophisticated pictures of the environment around us, and bringing reality as close as possible, reality in the virtual world. So I think I hope we'll never manage to actually create full reality out of this, because I think I like reality quite a lot. but we can get much closer to it, to simulate it, and the closer we get, the more innovation will be will drive that. So other example I always think, right, another important part of the virtual world is artificial intelligence, right? And artificial intelligence needs to be trained, right? And so let's take a self-driving car, or a delivery drone, right? That's very up to some things that everybody is very interested about right now. Well, to train the artificial intelligence that will drive that car or that will fly that drone, you basically need to take that piece of software that's artificial intelligence and teach it to react to reality, right? So there's two ways to do that. Either you take a car with that AI on board and with a pilot next to it to make sure there's no crash, and you made it drive or you made it fly for literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of hours, hoping that it will find every case of reality, and it will learn how to react to that case, right? So that's very expensive process, like tens of thousands of hours of flying and tens of thousands of hours of driving with a pilot or a co-pilot on board. It's a very expensive way to try to train AI. And without that training, we can't really safely head a car on the road or get a drone to safely deliver to you and I. So what can you do that is going to bring down the cost of that training and make it cheaper? Well, you can take that safe piece of AI and made it run to those driving scenario in a simulated environment. Now, the closer the simulated environment to the reality, the better the training is going to be. So it's very important for the training environment, whether KL, for instance, needs to be reproduced with very high fidelity, and then the traffic in KL need to be reproduced with very high reality. And you capture all of this, put this into this synthetic environment that is exactly like a video game, and take your AI and push it there, and let it learn, let it drive thousands of hours virtually on a computer, so it's ready to go on the street, right? So I think the innovation there is endless, and we discover, we're super grateful. We have 11 million users of Unreal worldwide who've downloaded the software and worked with it. And all of those people are finding tons of new new applications for it, and are teaching us what they need and telling us what they need to serve their purposes, etc. So I don't think there's an end point there. To go back to your question, I don't think at one day we'll say, hey, that's it. We've simulated reality convincingly enough. I think reality is infinitely complex, and we'll always find something, more and more detailed to image. We're probably just scraping the surface right now, but I think in the next 10 years, you and I will probably be able to do this interview in a in what feels like in person in a virtual studio, and probably not 10 years, maybe 5, with avatar that we will have choose and customize ourselves, and that will reproduce our emotion and give a presence that'll be strong enough for other people to watch you and I interacting and believe that it's a true interaction.
That sounds really exciting. Maybe not even 5 years. Maybe I'll speak to you in about a year's time and we'll be in a completely different setting.
That's right. I think it's moving very, very fast, and that's a lot of fun, and it's really exciting to be part of that journey.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Quentin, for coming on the show and just sharing what you guys are doing at Epic Games Unreal Engine. And I'm really looking forward to know more about the company. Thank you. Hope to see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you for having me, Cynthia. It was a pleasure.